But we got a cool one ahead this evening. I really appreciate every single person that's tuning in. We have some special guests tonight. Students from Cal Poly Humboldt that have just been recently doing some extra important. I mean, it couldn't be more important, the work that's happening right now. And so I really want to give a big shout out. We're going to be doing something special here. So we're not mentioning any names. This broadcast is going to be secure and anonymous for the folks that have joined me this evening because, as we all know, state repression is really at a peak. And we want to make sure that anybody that comes onto the radio show feels safe. So what we're going to be doing tonight is we are going to be talking about at least, I want to potentially talk about more, potentially farther back, but there have been 2 sit-ins the last 2 weeks in a row at Cal Poly Humboldt, and we have students here right now in the studio to talk about this. So let me give it up for the 2 guests in the building right now, 2 students from Cal Poly. Appreciate both of you for joining me this evening. So I wanted to talk about yesterday, obviously, a week ago, and anything that either of you wanted to say about winter, spring 2024, if either of you were involved with the first occupation at Cal Poly Humboldt. Were either of you there to be able to? Okay, cool.
I wasn't. I actually just got here. I watched that shit on my phone. I watched that on my phone, and I was excited to get up here when I saw that because I've been politically active for a while, and I was like, well,
it was cool. It was cool to see, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
It was also very interesting to be there as well, especially with the community that was out there helping the people on the inside, and seeing the cops leave was very, very, very powerful.
Heck yeah. So let me do this. Rather than taking it all the way back to start, let's start with the most pressing, the last 2 weeks. And so for the people that don't know, the students at Cal Poly right now are fighting to have, and we're going to have y'all talk more about it, y'all are fighting to have the school divest from any corporations, any companies, any funds in their portfolio that invest in war. And there's some other demands currently that you guys are trying to get the campus to honor as well. And so you guys want to tell the community a little bit more about, and so pardon me if I get the specific wording wrong, it's the Ethical Divestment Initiative? Is
a declaration, yeah.
Declaration.
Yeah.
Heck yes. Talk about it. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 3 demands that we were pushing, and number 1 was, of course, getting Cal Poly Humboldt to pass the SDS Ethical Divestment Declaration, which lists out several things, several funds, several corporations that are still supporting or manufacturing anything in support of war and genocide in Palestine. The second demand that we had is we want a formal sanctuary campus policy. Currently, the school relies almost entirely on state law for their non-cooperation, which, of course, if ICE shows up and California folds, that's it. Right, so we want the school to take a formal stance, and we want them to expand their protections because there are multiple things that the campus still won't protect undocumented students from. And then the third demand we had is we want the campus to advocate for the Teamsters and the CSU faculty that went on strike to demand fair wages. And the school has still also not done that yet. After our meeting yesterday morning, after we put the pressure on, they actually already divested from one of the corporations that day. They have the power, they can do it, it can happen quickly, but that's not the message they put out there. The message they put out there is that they're completely powerless and nothing can be done. Yeah, they're trying their best not to, though. Yeah, so there was a protest called to try to get the campus to divest using the divest along with the Sanctuary Campus and the Teamsters strike. The students went from the quad they marched from the Josiah Lawson mural. They marched up to the quad and they had a couple speeches, and then they went into the Siemens Hall building and had a sit-in. In the building, we spoke with the Vice President, Michael Fisher, and he basically said that there's nothing he could do at the moment, but he did promise to do negotiations and set a meeting for the next week, which was Friday morning at 8 a.m. And yeah, the annoying part about that meeting, though, is he originally decided to do it in that main quad and to do negotiations with us. Basically, right before the meeting was supposed to happen, admin decided to unilaterally move the meeting inside into a banquet hall that has an occupancy limit. It is in a less visible place, and obviously they're trying to do that to squash the movement. But of course, we demanded that they meet us outside anyway. Also, Associated Students posted on their Instagram account a post saying that it wasn't going to be a negotiations meeting and that it was going to be an informational meeting, basically telling the students that they were going to get talked at and not negotiations. And that was something that Vice President Michael Fisher doubled down on at the meeting when students were there calling him out for just talking at us. He doubled down on saying that no, these weren't negotiations, even though that's what he agreed to originally.
Oh wow, totally moving the bar real time.
Absolutely. They brought out their little infographics to try to talk around us. Of course, they completely ignored our points about divestment. They kept trying to distract by saying that they're already doing some environmentally, socially responsible investments. However, those investments still contained investments in genocide and war. They're greenwashing their investments. It's interesting, too, the posters that they had that showed the investments that they still have and what it's invested in. It still had, during the occupation in 2024, you can see on the graph a huge bump of environmentally and quote-unquote socially responsible investments. After the occupation, it went way up. So it just shows that doing these actions works and gets them to actually at least move somewhat in the right direction. And it shows that they are not willing to negotiate unless we turn the heat up. Of course, that meeting ended in a bad way. They did not give us anything. They tried to leave before they would give us any answers. And that's where the protest kept going afterwards.
And that was a week ago.
Oh, the meeting was on Friday. The original sit-in was what won that meeting. It was supposed to be an open public forum.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. And so right now, that all led into yesterday. And so, if you guys are willing to talk about it, let us know what went down yesterday.
Yeah, so we got to the meeting and they were obviously trying to keep it quiet. They were just doing a little presentation, obviously sidestepping all of our demands, sidestepping our concerns, downplaying their complicity in genocide and war, downplaying the threat of ICE against our campus. And students obviously didn't like that. People got a little heated because they didn't like hearing nothing but symbolic language, no action. So things got heated, people started getting angry, and after that meeting, students decided to stage a sit-in in the quad for a little while, but obviously there was not a lot of response from that, and the students ended up moving into Nelson Hall to stage a sit-in inside of Nelson Hall. This is also because the reason why people went into Nelson Hall is because they completely locked down Siemens Hall. They had admin at every entrance and exit. So it was chosen as a location as there was almost no one there. And the Goodwin Forum, which was the building or the room that was occupied, there were no other areas of the building that were occupied. Just the Goodwin Forum. And once we got in, there was a bunch of issues after that. So.
In Nelson Hall.
Yeah.
Okay, and so y'all have made the demands. Demands were not. To my understanding, at least. And so, correct me if I'm wrong. They have basically said nothing about any kind of sanctuary policy being implemented on campus. Is that correct?
Correct. They basically just talk about what they're doing now to distract from the things that they're not doing. Right. We on our demands we point out the holes in their policy, and they completely ignore that and just keep giving us that same symbolic fluff.
100%.
Just crumbs. That's all they could give us.
Yeah.
What's interesting too is once the sit-in started, they actually began to somewhat negotiate with us. Oh yeah, their tone changed greatly when it went from this isn't a negotiation, it's a conversation, to what can we do for you guys when we got inside. It's just proving time after time that the only way that we can actually get them to do anything, the only way we can force their hand, is by taking action like this.
So it's really interesting that this campus, this is supposed to be a pretty, progressive bit of a bastion in Northern California. We're extremely Northern California. You can only get further north if you go to Del Norte, right? And so with that being said, there's a lot of people that are on the same page, but it's also rural America and rural California too. And so we have a lot of, MAGA-minded people out here. But anyways, we're talking about on campus, and the campus is, I would say, let me rephrase this. Let me make sure I say that properly. I feel like the students are very left-leaning compared to the administrators that are more centrist and right-leaning. With that all being said, it's got to be clear to folks that there are people on campus that would potentially be targeted by ICE if I don't want to say if and when, because I'm hoping that they don't, but if they do come up here and start doing operating up here, there are students that would get targeted. So having a sanctuary policy that is stronger than, y'all were talking about, we had, who was it? Not Wilson. It was the last governor, the governor that implemented the sanctuary policy. I don't know why I'm not being able to think of his name off the top of my head right now, but the government that implemented a sanctuary policy for the state of California, that actually ends up being pretty weak, which is why specific cities and counties have implemented their own sanctuary policies, in which Humboldt County is a sanctuary county. And to my understanding, Eureka and Arcata both are sanctuary cities. With that all being said, we have to look at the unfortunateness of 2 years ago, Jerry Brown. Yeah, that's right, Jerry Brown. It was Jerry Brown that was, that implemented that sanctuary policy for California. But it ends up being so weak. That's like this, like this overarching thing. And then what ends up happening in specific jurisdictions is that they just do kind of what we want. And that takes me back to the first OccupyCalPoly.
The people in admin, they're not our friends. They're there to take money from us. And I think that just gets completely exposed when you look at even just the recent reaction to this last occupation, where when we actually got them to negotiate with us, they gave us a paper saying what they would do. It was another paper that didn't change any of their narratives, any of their lines. They basically admitted in the statement that they handed the protesters that they weren't going to do anything differently. And after the protesters deliberated and created a statement to give them to tell them what we wanted to see changed, they immediately completely dropped the facade of trying to listen to students, and they called in the police, UPD and APD, to try to intimidate us. They threatened us with violence. Yeah. They also potentially hired private security, which is another thing that our tuition is going to, along with donation money, which just further proves that they have no dog in the fight of trying to make things better, and they simply just want to oppress the students and try to get nothing done. It's just
Absolutely. It's just, to me, it's pretty insane that has been the response when it is obvious that, I mean, we're literally, something I was just saying, like, as we started the radio show, we're now literally basically in a war with Iran, one of the few countries in the axis of resistance that actually has the military clout to fight back against the Holocaust that is happening in Gaza. And that's what the students here are fighting for, is to just get this university to divest from that. And we're like you said, they're just giving crumbs. They're not trying to protect any students on campus. They're not trying to honor even I mean, completely separate but still important, the Teamsters fighting for fair wages. And they're like, have they said anything about the Teamsters?
It's funny that you say that. They basically just keep putting out statements saying that they support, but they will not give us any steps that they're actually taking to advocate for these workers. It's all completely symbolic fluff to try to get people to shut up. And regarding the money that is invested in war at the moment, at the meeting they basically said that it was only 1% of, I believe, $51 million or something. Yeah, they have an investment portfolio of $54 million. Yeah, and 1% of that is apparently invested. And that's a lot of money. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is almost as much as the CSU chancellor makes. It's kind of shocking that they can't reinvest in something else with that amount of money. They have to invest it in war crimes abroad and apartheid at home. They even put out a statement a couple days ago talking about their investments, and they said that these investments that are connected to war and genocide, they could drop them at any time. They're not part of, like, I can't remember the exact wording that they used. I'd have to pull it up. But they said that they could drop them at any time, but they just won't.
It's just wild to me. And so we're talking about a $50+ million portfolio, and we're talking about less than 2% of that they just simply can't figure out and find another few funds to move that money into. And so it really shows that the state and universities end up being financially funded arms of the state, and they're not implementing any kind of a democratic process with this, because they're just saying no. Actually, they're lying. They're gaslighting. They're lying through their teeth, saying, yes, we can at any time, like you said, and then they're not doing it. And for me, it's simple in terms of implementing a sanctuary policy. That would be something that would literally create a safer environment on campus for students. and they're not willing to do that?
There are several on-campus organizations who are fighting for a formal sanctuary policy, and the administration just isn't receptive. We have several committees that have access to admin who can't get it passed. If they were willing to do it, if they were really as progressive as they say they are, these things would already be done. I mean, that's why students are getting so angry. That's why any of this is happening.
Absolutely. And so tell me a little bit more, because I feel like it's one of the important parts of this is that we highlight, not in a good way, but highlight the police-based repression tactics that they have used 2 years ago, and that they have done again here last week as well as this week. Are you all willing to talk about any experiences 2 years ago and last night with the threats that have been made against students by UPD?
Yeah. So 2 years ago, there was a huge police response, the first and the last night. The first night, someone's head was cracked, their skull was cracked, and they immediately had to go to the hospital. There was a blood stain on the ground for, I believe, a day or two after. A lot of people got, pushed, attacked. That's just on the first night. The last night, they arrested, I think, around 34 people. It could have been 31 or 34. 32 people. And they were just sitting there. They weren't doing anything. They weren't inside Siemens Hall. They were just kind of just sitting there. They have zero disregard for the students who are protesting and the community members as well. They just want to arrest and suspend and put people on any sort of charges they can, no matter what. Luckily, last night we were able to narrowly escape without anybody having to get into any confrontation with any of the pigs. But they definitely wanted to. They were itching to move in on us. Again, like I said before, after we were doing these deliberations and admin gave us nothing and we gave them our response, they immediately handed us a paper threatening us with police action, with academic action against us, and they immediately threatened us with police action. So, as soon as we actually wanted to engage in a democratic process with them, they cracked down on the movement with the police. They immediately started surrounding the building with UPD vehicles. We had several patrols going around. They called in APD, and in the middle of the night, after people had started to get some sleep, randomly in the middle of the night, they started shouting through the loudspeakers threats at us, telling us that they were going to arrest us or physically assault us. They threatened serious physical injury against us for simply fighting against genocide and war and ICE. But luckily, we were able to get out without any casualties. One of the other things, too, in a statement to El Lenador, the newspaper, they stated that they ID'd some of the protesters and that there's a chance that there may be charges or repercussions that might happen to protesters. But we don't. It was only yesterday, but we don't know what could happen. It could happen this week, next week. We don't know what's going to happen. But there is a chance that could. And I do just want to know, this is a non-violent protest. There was absolutely no threat. We had medics there to keep people safe. The only threat that was there were from the pigs that admin brought in. Another thing, too, compared to the last occupation, there was almost no destruction of property. There was no graffiti with paint that I saw. The only thing could have been chalk. There no one defaced any walls. I mean, there was like some art that was taped up to the wall, but that can't really be called graffiti. But yeah, it was painter's tape and like folded paper swans on the wall. Yeah, and the windows were covered with Minecraft wrapping paper. So
That's so awesome. I think that's important to highlight too. And so I'm personally, I'm not trying to do is shame or chastise or denigrate any of the vandalism that happened at the first Occupy. This time there was no property damage. There was none of that. And it's interesting because that's one of the things where, these local Trumpster-minded people, they're going to go in and that's going to be one of the first things. Like, oh, they're trashing the school that they've never gone to. They've never set foot on campus ever, Like, they're trashing our school and this and that. And so, like, that didn't happen. Like, that, there was none of that this time. This was a literal sit-in with students trying to do what's right. And I think it's important to know something that's been quite a bit of the, at least the discussion that I've seen since about more than 24 hours ago. The administration locked the bathrooms was it in specifically Nelson Hall where the students were?
Yeah. It's really funny as well because we got to talking with the Vice President of Finance and Administration, Michael Fisher, and he straight up lied to our face and said that the bathrooms lock automatically. However, we got in there 5 minutes after we saw someone locking up the bathrooms. They got locked up immediately after, and also those bathrooms do not lock automatically. We have from several sources. You can go check yourself. They locked up those bathrooms on purpose to try to weaponize people's bodily functions to stop us from standing against genocide and ICE.
Which they also did when tents were set up and they took people's tents that were being used to keep people's belongings safe from being wet because we're in the Pacific Northwest. This is Humboldt County. It rains. It's been raining. Just trying to keep people's belongings from getting destroyed, and they took tents. And so it's just, no, there are no, at least as far as I know, even today, there are no smart bathrooms at Cal Poly for them to, from some central location.
Are they gender neutral?
What's that?
Are they gender neutral? Sorry.
It's once again them lying through their teeth. It's just so interesting how these people should be so ashamed of themselves that in order to protect the state, there has to be so much lying. It's like this whole entire hellscape of just lies that are just surround us. I'm not trying to pinpoint specifically, like, let's say Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, and Trump's administration, because Biden and Harris's administration, they've lied through their teeth the whole entire time.
No, I promise we're working day and night to get a ceasefire deal done.
Exactly.
Right. Thank you, Biden administration.
Exactly. Lied through their teeth. Kamala herself said, she's the one that said that. We are fighting tirelessly day and night. And it came out from Israeli news of all places, Channel 13 Israeli news, that was not the case. They were not doing anything to fight for a ceasefire whatsoever.
They sent, right after they started saying this stuff, they sent $8 billion more of $8 billion of weapons to Israel. So I don't know how.
Yeah, we know that the Israeli occupation forces and the Israeli government, they just lie by default about everything because it's just a complete. They just want to have cover for them to be able to do and continue to do what's wrong. Meanwhile, students here are doing what's right and getting repressed, getting those same lies. And so I'm really glad and proud to have seen groups on campus and the students post publicly, and I think it was, I'm pretty darn sure it was an SDS post that I saw that lined out exactly how the school's administration was lying about what they're putting out there publicly. Like they're literally once again trying to have that cover so they can continue to do what's wrong and not listen to the students, not do what would honestly, that doesn't lying this much and going against what's right, like, isn't that should be like tiring.
It's exhausting, but I mean, it's what's expected. This is simply, it's simply the position they hold. They are in positions of power, just like Israeli officials are, and they give the same. They're just trying to protect their own. They're trying to protect their bottom line. They're trying to protect the money that they make. And so, yeah, we're just going to get lie after lie because at the end of the day, this is what we can do to actually change them, what we can do to actually force them.
That's right.
And another example, Sonoma State, they managed at their encampment to get divestment through the president. But the day after the president accepted the divestment declaration, he was immediately fired by the CSU. Immediately fired.
That's crazy.
So it's not even just their own malice that they're being pressured from the top down. It's all top down. It's the whole system is just rotten to the core.
Absolutely.
And I do want to note, it's very telling. Talk to admin members outside blocking doors, or babysitters we call them, the people staring at us, we talk to them. And the only response we got from them, a familiar sentiment, we're just following orders. That's what we got over and over again. We're just doing our job, and that job being stopping protesters from trying to do what's right.
Also, regarding the babysitters, they weren't even getting paid overtime or any bonuses for just harassing us all night.
They were just doing it for the love of the game.
That is insane.
In fact, we actually had a lot of issues with those admin members actually straight up trying to rob us. There was one student who admin tried to steal a bag of supplies from. Food and other supplies snatched right from their hand, and the student thankfully was able to wrestle that away, but they were straight up trying to rob people.
They also, in the middle of the night, took away someone's tent with personal belongings in it without giving any prior notice, which there is a procedure to take down, I guess, unlawfully put up tents. But they just took it away and said nothing, and we're still trying to look for where it is and what we could do to get it back, because it had some pretty personal stuff in it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's literal theft. I mean, and it's from the people that are, supposed to be protecting the people from, getting things stolen. It's so insane that, it would be one thing if it was UPD primarily involved, but we've seen 2 years ago and now they pull an APD, even with that former mayor not being mayor anymore. We still don't have a mayor. I think it's Stillman right now. Is it Alex Stillman? Yeah, we still don't have someone that's willing to stand up for what is right. And it's just interesting to see the power dynamics between, so like the Arcata City Council Arcata is supposed to be, not supposed to be, but you would think, especially with it being the town that the university is in, you would think that the Arcata City Council would be more left-leaning than the Eureka City Council. But in the end of it all, it's actually not. Like the Eureka City Council, as of right now with the power dynamics, they're pretty left-leaning. And Arcata is a bit of a joke.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been to Arcata City Council meetings for various actions, especially trying to get them to stop sweeping homeless encampments. And they have, again, the exact same strategy. They just talk about other things that they're doing without actually talking about the fact that they're destroying people's homes. They're kicking people out of their homes and just moving them around until eventually they die. Like, they use the exact same strategy. And so I'm not shocked, personally, that APD was called in and that they were so gung-ho. I mean, they were the ones who were threatening the protesters.
UPD tries its best to not be involved. It's honestly kind of embarrassing that they were there last night trying to kick people out as well. Yeah, UPD was. They were all over campus today. They were, yesterday.
They were patrolling the day before and sweeping buildings. They were doing all sorts of stuff.
It's so wild to me. And so as of last night, after the police, UPD and APD, threatened, as far as I saw from what the press release that SDS put out, and it got put out through El Lenador and the Lumberjack as well, I believe, they threatened students with misdemeanors.
Yeah. They threatened students with misdemeanors, conduct charges, and then later, just through loudspeakers, physical violence.
It's interesting that rather than let students continue something that is peaceful, no property damage was happening. Just they weren't. They still wanted to end it, and so it's so. And to be honest about it, I think that the system itself doesn't want students engaging in this kind of activity because it could start, in a metaphorical sense, it could start a fire again and have encampments get set up all across the country from coast to coast, as we saw 2 years ago. And so I feel like they're like, no, we cannot allow this now. Like, we're going to be extra repressive. And when the students have been more peaceful, I would say, now compared to 2 years ago. And I'm not saying that the students weren't peaceful. I'm saying that there was probably at least, and y'all tell me if I'm incorrect, but there was dozens upon dozens of students 2 years ago when Siemens Hall was occupied, right? And so there's less students this time. There's no property damage happening, completely peaceful, completely reasonable demands, and they're increasing the repression. Did they threaten misdemeanors 2 years ago?
I don't remember exactly if they directly said that there were going to be misdemeanors. They did threaten citations for trespassing. That's something I do remember. I don't remember what the people who were arrested were charged with. I don't remember there being a direct threat to the students like there was yesterday. I think it was mainly just what happened when the people were arrested at the last occupation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I do also just want to say, the most efficient way for them to stop war encampments from happening is to simply meet the demands. I mean, but again, that's the problem. They realized last time that the only way they could stop the encampments was by giving in to some of their demands. And we saw on the chart that they brought up at that meeting, which they tried to deny, by the way, that exactly during the period where the encampment happened, that's when they started to divest. And then but then afterwards we saw a flatline, and that's why we had to come back out here. But yeah, no, it's crazy. The simplest way of stopping this from happening is just by meeting the demands. But that's how strongly they don't want to do what's right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's, and I want to give a big shout out to all the students that participated 2 years ago and in the last 2 weeks. And I would hope that students are seeing this and seeing that the state is working against the students to create a situation where the students are less safe, by not implementing sanctuary, by not giving into these demands where if it's only quote unquote only 1%, that should be easy to divest from. They don't want to do the easy work. They would rather do what ends up creating more community pushback, what ends up being visible to the students as the administration not working for the students, not implementing any kind of a democratic process when the students pay the tuition. You know, they and to my understanding, they're continuously increasing the price of tuition.
After they, I think they increased tuition, like they doubled tuition since like what, 2015, something like that. But they do annual tuition increases.
6% annually.
Yeah. Well, again, like they're cutting departments, and the admin keeps giving themselves big raises every year as well.
CSU Chancellor Mildred Garcia makes, like, I believe, somewhere around $1 million a year, and I haven't seen her do any work.
Yet they can't just give us they can't just give us our demands. They're making so much money at all, but the greed is just so obvious.
They're literally operating it, and this should be, I mean, completely government subsidized endeavor. This is public education, and they're operating it like a corporation where they're paying, just like we see Congress operate. They vote themselves more pay raises every single year. These corporations give these larger and larger packages, parachutes to these executives at these corporations that are exploiting thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions of people around the globe. And the wealth that is being created is completely funneled up to the top. And this government subsidized endeavor is not operating any differently. And so it's interesting because you would think the whole, you got all these MAGA people and right, conservative leaning people that are for less government and therefore less government spending. Yet, you know what I mean? They're not looking at the fact that these people inside the schools, CSU, UC as well. I'm almost, 99.999% sure it operates the same exact way. They're voting themselves and giving themselves more and more money at the top, the chancellors, the board of trustees, and these people. And meanwhile, charging more for tuition. And I couldn't say for sure, but at least how it happens in let's say the medical, field and industry, like the care and what's happening on the ground for the people is getting less and less. Like the people are getting less and less.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say, MAGA people and right wingers think they want less government and less government spending, but obviously, they just want less government spending on the working class, and they want more. They want more government spending and stronger government when it comes to policing and killing minorities. When it comes to war, it's completely hypocritical, and we see the exact same sentiments from admin.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump wants a $1.5 trillion military budget when that's basically going to just go into missiles and guns and whatever else they want to destroy foreign countries abroad like they're doing in Iran. And of course they're doing this alongside Israel. All the weapons that we don't use are immediately sent to Israel and other countries as basically a dumping ground.
Not to mention the ballooning ICE budget. I mean, I don't think you can...
$216 billion.
Yeah, I can't think you can claim to be for small government if you support ICE.
It's such a total contradiction. These people completely contradict themselves, and it's all about them getting their way. It fits their worldview of, immigrants are the problem when it's just so wild. I mean, how many immigrants have killed people in the United States versus how many people have died in the United States at the hand of health insurance companies? It's complete night and day. It's
like 60,000 people die every year in the United States from not having health care coverage.
Yeah. You know.
I mean, it's this obvious trend in the simple logic of capitalism that makes us go out here. We know that the only thing that we can do is disrupt and take up their time and hurt their bottom line to try to make real systemic change.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's one of the interesting things I've seen over the last few years is the people on the ground, boots on the ground, when it comes to some of these large corporations like Home Depot. I've seen one of the campaigns that people have done is like, so they'll buy an extremely cheap item and then go back in mass to return these items, and so like that ends up clogging up the store. It ends up costing Home Depot a lot of money because to run credit cards, that costs fees and transaction fees and refund and all that. And so those are the type of campaigns that people can do, and that's it's similar to what you guys are doing. It's basically what I mean, like the front has to stay like hot and on against these people, because if they get a chance to breathe, that's just basically them being allowed to reset progress completely, essentially, right? Which is why, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's why the students created and have pushed this ethical divestment declaration, because since 2 years ago, I don't think that the administration has basically done anything.
Yeah, no, it again, their divestments have completely flatlined after the heat died down from the 2024 encampments. So that's 100% the case. I mean, and it's just the amount of malice that they have towards students is incredible. Another thing that they ended up doing was locking students out of the cultural centers, even though we were in, of course, it was a completely peaceful protest, and we ended up just taking one room on the first floor, far away from the cultural centers. They decided to lock down the whole building. I mean, they locked down the whole building before we even got there, and they kept the building locked. Even after we left, they got the building locked now. But they're even using that to attack us. They're locking people out of the cultural centers and then blaming us for that, even though they locked it out. Even if we didn't even go into Nelson Hall, the cultural centers would have been locked up for the same amount of time because of what admin is doing.
Tell me what y'all think about what should happen moving forward. Tell us, whether it's just, I mean, obviously they need to divest, but give us a breakdown. And it might just be, I mean, like I said, these demands are completely reasonable. They need to honor the demands is, I mean, basically number one. And so talk to me about what you guys specifically want to see. And if it's just repeating the demands, I completely get it.
Well, we can do more than just repeating the demands, because if you actually check out SDS and YDSA's statements about the student protest negotiations and what we put forward for admin to do, really what we want is we want to see them come forward with a statement, a signed statement from the president, which he signed the last fluffy one that didn't do anything. So we know he can do something, even though he hasn't been showing up. He's been absent suspiciously. Very Tom Jackson. Very Tom Jackson. But we want them to come forward with statements with actual actionable items, actual policy that they are going to be pushing for to try to see change. We want, and again, they keep giving us the excuse that there's nothing they can do. But if there's nothing they can do, they need to tell us, who can we go to? What can we do? Who are the people? Give us a list of names. What are you going to be contacting people? How are you going to be helping us with this? But they basically just keep coming back with statements talking about what they're attempting to do right now without giving us any of those actionable items.
That just reminds me of exactly what they did 2 years ago. Just like we're doing something. And then they'll even have events where they invite students and community members to tell them we're trying, or we are going to do something, or we are doing something, and it's been nothing. So it's just, this is the struggle that we living in the imperial core are fighting, and it's just so wild to see these arms of the government fight tooth and nail to just not do what's right. If the administration was to give that write a signed letter of the changes that they will make, that they have agreed to make, if they were to not create a better sanctuary situation on campus, would y'all continue to fight for a sanctuary policy?
Absolutely. Also, the Teamsters as well. The Teamsters deserve to get a raise. They were told they were going to get a raise, and they basically haven't gotten it. But regarding the sanctuary declaration, we will keep doing this as long as it takes until we can guarantee that ICE will not be allowed on our campus. Because even if one person was taken, that is one too many, and we cannot stand for any of it. There's just no way we can stand.
Absolutely.
This has been already a years-long, sustained protest campaign by students. If admin doesn't give in, the only thing that's going to cause is more protests.
Absolutely. I just thought of something, too, that's important to keep in mind. The university, I don't know if it's still getting money put into it, but they had, and probably still do had, a strategic enrollment initiative, with one of the goals being getting people of color from urban places in California to come to the school. And so to have spent what is likely hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over a span of years to pull people of color onto campus and then not to protect them at this time, that's like you're literally pulling people into the fire. And so with all the activity that we have seen coast to coast by what is essentially at this point amounting to a domestic army of the state, to, on one side, target, to me, it's an expansion of the prison industrial complex, right? I'm seeing pictures and video of grown Latina women in diapers, in cages, where they don't even have enough room to sit. I'm seeing them, the system, snatching up kids as young as 5 years old, as we've seen, whether it be to intimidate and try to capture that person's friends, parents, or whatnot, or actually just taking those literal kids. I've seen in the last 2 weeks reports that they are capturing young women as young as 13 years old that are pregnant and moving them out of the states that they're capturing them in and putting them in red states with anti-abortion laws, specific for a very specific reason, And so I'm praying, because there's a good amount of Hispanic and Latine people in this community. We've seen ICE is not only targeting Latinx, and Hispanic peoples, they're targeting at this point they're making lists and targeting people that are legal observers or just people that are filming what ICE is doing for the protection of their communities, and they're getting on a list, and ICE is targeting them. That means that if ICE and CBP start doing operations here, to be frank about it, no one's safe. And so, with all that being said, I'm glad to hear that you guys would absolutely continue to fight for sanctuary policies on campus specifically. You cannot pull people into this school and then not protect them. That's wild to me. Like, what administrators, how are they sleeping at night? Like, to be able to not at least, I mean, I'm not trying to separate the demands, and I'm not trying to say any one of them is any easier, but for the sanctuary policy demand, for them to have said nothing, that's pretty stark.
I mean, it's embarrassing for this campus, the fact that they won't just openly advocate for what's right. But again, like you said before, and what we were talking about before, they have different masters, profit. That's what they're there for. They're there to defend profit. I mean, it's insane that a school has an investment portfolio of $54 million. They are there to make profit. And so that's why we're not seeing it. But what you were saying before, the ICE is absolutely an expansion of the prison industrial complex. It's a way to maintain racial hierarchies to keep us separated. And the fact that the campus administration doesn't want to fight for what's right here shows that they want to maintain these racial hierarchies as well. They know this is a way to split us up to keep their profits intact, just as much as it is to keep other corporations' profits intact. And regarding the focus on getting people from urban areas to go to this campus and other CSUs, to them it's not about helping anybody. It's about making themselves look and feel better. It's all a show to them. They don't want to help. They don't want to. They would rather build even. They can keep building crappy dorms, and they can keep ruining services on campus. They can make things more expensive because it doesn't matter to them. They're still making their pillow of cash. They're sleeping on. It's horrific.
Absolutely. You know, there's that level of insulation and comfort that exists for whether it's administrator, any staff that is benefiting from them consistently raising their salaries and everything like that. There's that comfort, and it's like, you know, it used to be, the classic saying was those who can't teach. But but now, I mean, it's really operating just like a corporation would. You know, why does any of these universities? I mean, I understand. I graduated from Humboldt State University with a business degree, and so I understand, with an emphasis in accounting, and so I understand finance. I understand these things, but why do these schools have these large, insanely large funds? Like, I know that, interest is made, money is made. I don't think that any of that money is actually going to better the campuses. I don't think that any of that money is actually doing any good for students.
If they wanted to actually improve the campus, they'd use that money to make this campus more accessible. That's one of the biggest issues with that campus. It's impossible to get around for people who have physical disabilities. It was called Hills and Stairs University. And again, we're seeing departments having their funding cut. Like, they are getting bigger profits year after year, yet they can't improve things around here. They can't advocate for what's right. It's just total. There's a total mismatch between what admin says and what they do. A couple years ago, when they still had students living in the hotels, they claimed that they were going to have a van that would go from campus to the hotels where the students lived and back. That never materialized. So these students had to figure out ways to get to campus when they were pressed. A way to get to campus with no issue. And these were very far away from campus. And of course they put disabled students there as well, so they couldn't, have easy access to campus anyway. So
Listen, and they wonder why they have decreasing enrollment, why they can't keep their enrollment up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was one of the larger fights in the last few years, was the fact that around here, housing is difficult to come by and the rents are way too high. A portion of that stems from this area being, for a long time, a lot of cannabis activity, and so people would be able to rent houses, and the term that we classically use was blow them up, have a big grow, and and so landlords were like, okay, you might even, some landlords even were okay with people growing inside their apartments and things and houses and stuff, and they would just jack up the rent, and it went completely in the same direction, but worse when the school changed. It became a Cal Poly school, because housing prices in the area went up, which means landlords are going to charge more. And so housing is very difficult to come by around here. It's not cheap. It's not affordable for students. You often have to go like 4 or 5 people deep on like a 2-bedroom here in Eureka or Arcata just to be able to have a rent that's like attainable for students. For the longest time, and that was one of the big things years ago, was students were camping in their cars and didn't have a place to go. And so like people a few years ago were fighting for safe parking situations, like new parking lots where students and anybody could, just be able to be there. That's capitalism is crushing like all of us. And this university has not responded well enough. Now, what we've seen is these few, I don't want to say high rise because it's all relative, but like 5, 6, 7 story or so tall buildings that are right across the freeway from the campus and everything like that. I don't know what those rents there are looking like, you know what I mean, or if they're subsidized or anything like that.
Those are some terrible apartments, and they are not cheap, and they also... they aren't up to fire code, are they?
They are not up to fire code. The only ladder truck in the county cannot reach a few floors in the building.
Oh, wow.
So if there's a fire at that building at one of the higher levels, there's almost nothing they can do but spray water from the ground. They couldn't even go with the ladder truck.
So that's an unsafe situation that we're talking about. That was cutting out, but the folks here said that those new buildings are not up to fire code, and if fire trucks were to come, they don't even have ladders tall enough to get up there to be able to put out the fires. They would have to just spray them from the ground. I mean, once again, it's like this, half-stepped attempt to do what's right, but in the end, they end up gouging students and not creating safe situations.
We were even told by some people we know that one of the fire alarms inside of the building was leaking. The entire fire alarm was like leaking fluid onto the ground right after it was done being built. So they had to shut down part of the building to fix it.
I can just be, I can't slander any company around here, but it's just a matter of like whatever company built those, like they need a kick in the pants, like that's just insane to me. And here we are. I still don't think that has increased enough supply of housing to decrease housing prices in Arcata. It's still exorbitant. I remember when my partner and I first came here like 22 years ago, we were able to get a 1-bedroom for $600 was the rent that we were paying. Now, like, you cannot get a 1-bedroom in Arcata for like a 1-bedroom apartment. You can get, maybe if you get lucky, you can find a room with roommates for $600, but that's even hard.
It's $650, $700 maybe. That's what I see around here for one. Right, like people post it up. I've seen $800, $900 for a room too.
That's so wild. And so here we are, the students are struggling and still doing what's right, and there's no interest from the administration to do what's completely reasonable to honor these demands and actually go in the direction of, because what in my view, like all of these things should be addressed. Like these demands need to be acquiesced to. They need to honor these demands, from the divestment to the sanctuary policy to taking care of the Teamsters. They need to, what y'all were talking about is super important, accessibility, especially for disabled people. Like that should, that should be like federal, you know what I mean? There should be like, I think, and I may have spoken about this on the radio broadcast prior, but like there may even be like a lawsuit that exists that's open probably regarding not honoring ADA.
It's funny, the only lawsuit they seem to care about is the one about anti-Semitism. They only seem to focus on that when there are other things that actually are much more pressing. It's shocking that they have decided to just completely not focus on disability access when it is one of the major issues why a lot of people can't come here. Another thing is I forgot the name of the center is, but there's the disability center on campus. They're also extremely underfunded. It takes a while to get an appointment. It takes a while to get access to services. It's a complete mess, and they can fix it. It's all fixable. Everything that we're pushing for is completely fixable, and it would improve the campus quality of life. It would improve everything, but they just refuse to do it.
Right. You would, and I just, living where we live in this somewhat more left-leaning area, like you would think we're seeing this general thing across the board, coast to coast, but you would think in the places where we have more people that are left-leaning that they would be going against that, the system, that the university would be going against the grain to do what's right, to set the example. It used to be like that. Like I even spoke, so, as a part of the anti-war committee, when that group went to the Eureka City Council, I brought up the fact that it's like it's 20, 25 years ago at this point now, somewhere between 20 and 25 years ago. But the Arcata City Council voted to impeach Bush, like stuff like that. Like, and even then, like that ends up being somewhat symbolic, but it was in that direction, right? And there's been it's been a collapse of gumption and energy and interest in continuing to do what's right around here. And so it's just wild.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, things are getting worse in the U.S. More people are starting to come to realize that the state is not working in our favor. And so there's less room for people to try to take those symbolic actions because people might actually end up taking them and running with them. So they end up having to clamp down on people harder as things start escalating. And we're seeing that happen all around the country, not just here.
Absolutely. Living inside the Imperial Core, it's something I tell a lot of my friends all the time. It feels like living on the Death Star. And eventually, Luke is going. Some rebels are, somebody's gonna come with a proton torpedo, and that's just the reality of it, no empire lasts forever. Rome came down. This is not going to last. We're seeing, and I'm not trying to get too geopolitical, but we're seeing de-dollarization and a lot of institutions and people affiliated with those institutions across the board, coast to coast, are clutching their pearls. You know, they don't want to lose that comfort. And that's one of the things that I said, too, in a few radio episodes ago, that, you know, and some of the folks that were here with me said the same thing. There's going to need to be like sacrifice in this country. In order for change to happen, there's going to need to be some sacrifice. It's not going to be fun, but we can actually change things. And what I think is important to keep in mind is that these students at Cal Poly, students across the country, in universities and down to high school, these are the folks that are going to be running the country eventually. The Epstein class and all their geriatric people in Congress, you know what I mean? Like all these old people, like you're not going to live forever. Eventually, Nancy Pelosi is going to bite it. Darth Vader, Dick Cheney died last year. You know, like we're seeing. Right. Like it's not going to last forever. And so if the people in charge now in this transitionary period don't start to just give something to the people and not move to repress us more and more and surveil us more and more and to gouge us more and more and take our power away, like there's going to be a schism because, to be quite frank about it, people are now, there's a lot of people waking up to the fact that in this capitalist country, the main country in the empire, in the Western Empire, people are waking up to the fact that capitalism is not the only way. And there's a lot of folks, and the cat's out of the bag in a sense when it comes to socialism and communism. And you're not just going to be able to, it's not like all of these students, all of these young people are just going to all of a sudden, as time passes, they say, as you get older, you get more conservative. I don't know that that's actually accurate, Like when you have so many people that know that capitalism is literally destroying our earth, destroying our future, like it's not going to be just people just by default slowly going more and more right. It's so, shout out to y'all for pushing for what's right tirelessly and doing what's right. And I think that this community owes everybody who was involved in Occupy 2 years ago and all the students that are involved now with the good work that's happening on campus. I think that this community owes you guys quite a big debt,
I think, that might not be the language I'd use because at the end of the day, no, they should lower my rent. They should absolutely lower my rent. I should be getting free rent. But that being said, at the end of the day, the reason why I'm pushing so hard is because I know that, like you were saying, those geriatrics in office right now, those pedophile cannibals in office right now aren't going to be there forever, and we're going to have a generation of people who are more awake to the contradictions that exist, and there needs to be people who have the correct approach. There needs to be people who know what's going on and can explain the phenomena that people are experiencing. And my hope is that as things escalate, as the U.S. government gets worse, as the empire starts to die, people will start to side more and more with us. Especially with this war in Iran, least interventionist president of all time, Donald Trump. He is just furthering these contradictions of U.S. aggression abroad, and he's doing it so blatantly that it's almost like if you're just looking at it, it's almost impossible to not see it as an imperialist conflict. Almost that people still don't see it. It's kind of brain breaking, but sorry, continue. No. It's I know a couple people in my a couple of my friends in my family have kind of switched up their tone when it comes to talking about the president, because it's really shocking to see a war start, just an open war, almost with no pretext. I mean, there is no pretext. Israel attacked Iran, and then the U.S. started bombing Iran immediately after. It's so blatant that Israel's basically just taking our hand and leading us towards war. It's shocking.
I was just sitting over here talking about how, we've, started this war with Iran, and it didn't start with Venezuela, but, we wanted to insulate ourselves from supply line shocks, and took the most oil-rich nation, by the neck, and now we're able to, do what we're able to do, which is spend all this money that we budget every single year that the United States, I keep saying we're here in the United States, but it's the government. It ain't me. It's the government that has budgeted $500 billion, each NDAA, each war act every single year is between $500 billion and $1 trillion. And now, like you were saying, Trump wants $1.5 trillion. That's so much money that could be going to fund all of the things that we need here for all of the people: education, better care for the homeless, entire ecosystem of rehabilitation for the lumpen proletariat that need better, care. And it's all being spent for war. The empire is gearing up for this, and they know what they're doing. And they have at the point when you load all of your guns, you only have one thing to do but unload them. And we've seen that as, and I say slow in terms of if you go back to 9/11. It's been since 9/11 there has been this, basically anti-Arab, just kind of sentiment that has just grown and grown and grown, which ends up benefiting the apartheid settler colonial project in Palestine. So that way they can create their greater Israel, right? And so it's just been, and they control so much of so many processes in this country, countries straight up though too, the UK, Germany, other countries, they control so much that they're able to do this with impunity. And it all even came out with these Epstein files. It's just straight up. It's very clear. It's out in the open at this point. Israel and Mossad was running a blackmail ring to be able to control all of these different power structures across the globe. And so it's all out there, and it's just wild to watch it all just have unfolded during our lifetimes.
It's crazy too, the United States is even going after Greenland, which is under Denmark, a European power. The United States cares so little about, its future progress that we're attacking our own allies. And we can't even exploit the minerals in Greenland because it's too cold. You can't go and mine them. It's crazy that we're trying to do that. To our own ally, they're basically a vassal state to us. All of Europe is, except past Belarus and Russia. It's just they're completely subservient, and all the European powers support Israel and the genocide in Palestine.
That's why you're going to keep seeing us out on the streets. Every time you see something in the news, hopefully we can get in the news too.
Amen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important for us to try to, redirect that narrative, because they're going to continue on with their lies and their narrative. And so many people just by default, because humans just, let me say this, a lot of people in this country specifically have been so propagandized for so long that they look to these legacy, whether it's mainstream media type outlets and things, for their worldview. And so it's that much more crucial to, exactly like you guys said, redirect, change that narrative, get actual, press to shine a spotlight on the reality, the truth, people that are fighting for the right things and speaking up for the right things is so crucial.
And that's one of the reasons why we really appreciate you letting us on. It's very appreciated.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Absolutely. No, I'm really thankful that y'all gave your time here for the community to hear about what's been happening. It's one of the most, I've been around here, living around here for 22 years. Graduated at HSU, been around here since. And what happened 2 years ago and a week ago and last night is some of the most important stuff that has happened in my opinion, Humboldt County history, because it is the students actually reflecting the values that have been touted by this area, yet not actually acted upon until y'all stood up for what's right. And so it's my pleasure to be able to use this platform to get this information out there. I am wishing all of y'all the absolute best and sending every bit of strength that I can to the efforts that you guys are doing, because the school has not honored the demands. And so I don't think you guys are done.
Oh, absolutely not. Don't worry, you'll see.
Heck yeah. No, absolutely. Well, it's going to take us a little bit of time to break everything down, but I, again, want to thank y'all for coming on. So in the interest of obviously keeping everything anonymous, what would you recommend? What would you want to see people in the community do to either support or to find out what is happening?
Go on to Instagram and read the statements from YDSA and SDS to get more information on specifics of what's happening. And the most important thing that the community can do is use their bodies. We need people to be there to support. Whether or not you want to take part in actions, we need people to be there, especially because the campus is a lot more likely to use violent measures and bring the pigs out if there are fewer people there. If there are lots of people there showing in support, they're a lot less likely to crack our heads in. So that really is the most important thing you can do, is just keep up with this and lend support where you can.
Absolutely. I hope y'all enjoyed this broadcast tonight. Shout out to the students. If y'all want to support them, again, like the guest just said, follow the YDSA on campus at Cal Poly. Follow SDS Humboldt to keep apprised of what's happening. Shout out to El Linador for doing a good job with their coverage. I feel like, and I want to give a shout out, but not like a whole lot of like thanks to the Lumberjack, because they're covering things. But I think that they're not. I feel like, at least especially in the last week with what's happened, like I feel like they're covering things, but not like representing the students properly in what's happening. They're more just kind of like, I feel like they're doing a bit to disseminate what the campus wants to be disseminated. And so, they're providing some good coverage, but shout out to the community that is holding them accountable and calling them out, and the posts that were made by SDS and other groups to say, talk about the demands, talk about what the students are actually asking for, because it's easy to just like cover things and just have because sometimes covering things can have the energy like dissipate. Right? If people aren't hearing the right things and knowing what's actually happening, they're like, oh, okay, you know what I mean? By default, this community there's a lot of MAGA people in this community that are going to, say their pieces. And when the proper information isn't put out there, journalists and these outlets are really doing work that supports that right-leaning side if you're not putting the correct truth and all the whole truth and nothing but the truth out there.